Today, we're diving into something truly incredible, the narrative parallels between two of the Quran's most important prophets, Yusuf and Musa. I mean, their lives were separated by centuries, but their stories, they're woven together with a precision that is just, well, it's breathtaking. Let's get into it. And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling today. How is it even possible for two completely different lives in totally different time periods to mirror each other so perfectly? It's a narrative marvel, and we're going to unpack exactly how it works. So, where do we start? Well, our comparison begins right at the very beginning of their journeys, in the exact same place, the land of Egypt. And it starts with two children, both lost and separated from their families. Okay, so the foundation is laid out really simply here. Both stories unfold in Egypt, and both prophets start their journeys as lost, vulnerable kids. This shared starting point is basically the launchpad for a whole series of parallels that are, honestly, pretty astonishing. The first major parallel is how they get lost. Both are cast away into water, Yusuf into a well, Musa into a river. But you have to notice the huge difference in why. Yusuf is thrown away by his brothers out of pure jealousy and hate. Musa, on the other hand, is placed in the river by his own mother, out of love, out of faith, trying to save him based on a divine command. And this act of separation, whether it was meant for harm or for protection, it just unleashes this wave of incredible grief that really shapes both stories in a deeply personal way. In both stories, the Qur'an just zooms in on the pain of a parent. For Yusuf, it's his father, Yaqub, or Jacob, whose grief is described as being so intense that his eyes literally turned white from sorrow. And for Musa, it's his mother, whose heart is described as becoming completely empty with worry and loss. The language is so visceral, you can just feel that pain. So what happens after all that grief? A command to search. And again, the parallel is just striking. It's Yusuf's father who orders his other sons, go and find out about Joseph. And it's Musa's mother who tells his sister, follow him. In both situations, it's a parent holding on to a sliver of hope who kicks off the search. Okay, this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. Both of these lost kids, cast away and seemingly all alone, don't just find safety. They find it in the most unlikely place imaginable. Right in the heart of Egyptian power, inside the walls of a palace. It's incredible. Both prophets are essentially adopted by the rulers of the palaces they end up in. Yusuf gets taken in by the owner of the palace, the Aziz of Egypt. And Musa? He's discovered and saved by the wife of the pharaoh himself. Both find a home with the very people who will one day become their adversaries. Now, when the baby Musa is brought to the pharaoh, his wife pleads for his life. And the Quran records her saying these exact words, "Do not kill him. Perhaps he may be of benefit to us, or we may adopt him as a son." And now, get this. When Yusuf is bought by the Aziz of Egypt, the Quran records him saying almost the exact same thing about the boy. Perhaps he may be of benefit to us, or we may adopt him as a son. To have this verbatim echo across two totally different stories, it is nothing short of breathtaking. And here's another really subtle, kind of cool detail. It's like an inverse parallel. The scripture gives us this deep, emotional look into the suffering of Yusuf's father, but his mother, she's not mentioned. And on the flip side, we feel the anguish of Musa's mother so deeply, but his father is missing from this part of the story. It's this fascinating mirrored omission. All right, so their stories have been running on these perfectly parallel tracks up to this point. But right here, as they grow into men inside these palaces, their paths are about to split, and in the most dramatic way possible. And the difference is just night and day. Yusuf, after all his trials, is eventually loved and promoted. The king himself says, "Bring him to me, I will appoint him for myself." He sees his worth. But Musa? He becomes an enemy of the state. He's forced to flee Egypt, terrified for his life, becoming a fugitive from the very palace that raised him. So now we've come to the final and maybe the most stunningly precise comparison of them all. This is a parallel so exact, it almost feels like a divine signature that's been woven right into the text itself. All right, let's look very closely at the verses that describe the moment each of them gets their wisdom and maturity. For Yusuf, the Quran says, "And when he reached his full strength, we gave him judgment and knowledge." And for Musa, it says, And when he reached his full strength and was mature, we gave him judgment and knowledge. You hear that? They are almost identical. The only difference, the only one, is a single Arabic word, wastawa, which means and was mature or and was perfected. This one word appears in the verse for Musa, but not for Yusuf. This level of precision is just incredible. It suggests these stories aren't just similar, they are aligned down to the very choice of words. And so we end up right back where we started, with a question. What's the divine wisdom here? Why are these two lives, these two prophets, mirrored so perfectly? Why present them as two sides of the same coin, one who rises to power from inside the system, and another who flees, only to bring that power down from the outside? It really leaves you to just marvel at the profound, intricate design of it all.